I'm here with Gloria Desanker, a GIS consultant and founder of Matt Nerd Consulting. And so Gloria works on environmental and social issues with a mission to elevate voices. And you know what? Instead of me telling Gloria's story, I'm going to ask Gloria to share your own story and your own experience.
Sure thing. Thank you. So at the moment, I work as Matt Nerd Consulting. And what I'm really passionate about is connecting people, data, and storytelling. So that can range from environmental issues to social, but I really like to take data and the humanity and bring those together to create something that's compelling and can be shared with others.
Okay, so what drives your passion? You're a founder. Mm-hmm. So what drove you to exit corporate America, working at somebody else's company to start your own business?
That's a really good question. So honestly, I never saw myself as a business owner or as a consultant. I kind of saw myself, entering a nonprofit or a company and working my way up the ladder. But at the beginning of the pandemic in 2021, I got laid off. And that was, a really hard experience to go through. But I think thinking back at it, I wasn't happy where I was. I was doing GIS work, but I wasn't doing GIS the way that I wanted to. I wasn't working with the type of people I wanted to. And I wasn't working on projects or making the impact that I wanted to. So I think in a way that was kind of the shift or change that I needed. And that really opened up a lot of doors for me, especially in seeing what I could be or what I could do. So I started consulting and I was like, oh, this is nice. I'm doing exactly what I was not doing before. Mm-hmm. So I decided to make it official and I founded my own business and I've been doing that ever since.
All right. So in terms of your career and the spaces that you currently navigate as an entrepreneur, which of these do you encounter most, or is it equal? Imposter syndrome or isolation?
Oh, I would say imposter syndrome more so, just because I feel like I'm a very visual person. That's kind of the work that I do. So when I'm in a space or I'm in a field, I'm at a conference, I look around and I think that visual aspect really creates community for a lot of people in a lot of important ways. And when I'm in an organization where I'm the only Black person, or if I'm in a project meeting and there are no Black people at the table, I think that kind of is like an internal message and also external telling me that this is not a space where I belong or where I won't succeed. If I don't see any executive directors or higher up staff who, are people of color, then it's kind of like, is this sector really for me?
So when you say the visuals of a space that you walk into, you're talking about, do I see people of the diaspora? Do I see women? Do I see Black women? Things of that nature?
Yeah, and I think it's also just the types of spaces that we're in as well, spaces that are really structured or very westernized. I was at a training a while ago in this really historic building, and all the photos were of old white people who contributed to the environmental space. Mm-hmm. And I know, doing my own research, that there are so many people of color, Black, Indigenous, et cetera, who have contributed so much and don't get that representation. And I think that is another message that is telling me that this space does not value the diaspora and what I can bring to the table.
So when you did your training presentation over the last 2 days, you focused specifically on forestry. Why was that?
So my master's degree is in forestry from Michigan State. So my research looked at mapping vegetation in the east side of Africa. And I use a lot of GIS to do that. So my background is in forestry and terrestrial landscapes, but there are so many other applications for GIS that I've also worked in. But I definitely feel most comfortable with vegetation on land.
And approximately how many Black women have you encountered?
Since
starting your career, your interest in forestry?
So in the forestry department, I was the only Black woman while I was there. And in, the more traditional conferences that I was recommended to go to by professors and things like that. Did not see other Black women that I can remember, or at least not a lot. Maybe a few other people of color, but that space, especially the forestry space, is traditionally predominantly white and male.
So, and this is a personal question, and there's no right or wrong answer. How comfortable did you feel taking that feedback back to your professors? Because I asked that because at one point in my career, I was asked to go to a professional career fair virtually. And of the options of avatars to choose from, there was a Latinx woman, 2 white men, a Black man, and an Asian woman. Who am I?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And so it was a very uncomfortable experience, but I think I had reached a point in my career where I was feeling firm and vigor in my soul. And I asked my co-representative, what should I choose? Because I don't see a Black woman. And he asked the makers or the administrator of the technology, and they said, choose the Latinx woman. And so when we talk about organizations being able to leverage their weight and things like this, so I took that chance to be vulnerable to my coworker. I still had to pick someone who did not represent me, which was something I had to eat.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. That's I feel like why we're all here, right? So that doesn't happen again.
Okay, so what drew you to this year's first ever in-person North Star homecoming event?
So I first served North Star, I think it was last year when Clinton reached out to me and then put me in contact with you. And I was really excited to come to North Star, this in-person event, especially just to really be a part of this first community of events. And just wanting to share my story, hear other people's story, and really just have them know that GIS is an option for them, right? That's the whole point of this, to show that Black people in the diaspora are here. We work with GIS, we help build GIS, and we're still doing it. And we want the next generation to continue doing that.
Yes. Okay, so we know that there's a place for large, medium, and small professional conferences and events like this one. What do you see as the value of these smaller, more intimate events?
Yeah, I think these smaller, more intimate events are a lot better for building that deeper community. And I think especially after the pandemic, where everything became virtual and everything became a lot more distant, I'm sure a lot of people felt isolated, especially in the GIS or environmental fields. That, brings up a lot of imposter syndrome and isolation for people. That definitely exacerbated that for a lot. So I think having this small of a conference is really meaningful to start to reconnect and kind of heal from all the trauma that's happened.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. So it seems like there were major shifts for you with the onset of the pandemic that have been lasting. And there have been lots of organizations, and I'm sure you've come across some in your consulting work, that talk about DE&I being parts of their mission. They were really driving the Black Lives Matter statements and things like that. What was your litmus test to understand or determine how true these companies were in their statements and in their comments? What are some things that you look for?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think first off is, going to their website, looking at who their staff is, looking at who their board of directors is, looking at their client list and what they do, looking at their projects. And then if you get an opportunity to talk with them, like an informational interview or, another opportunity, asking that question directly, what is the intent behind your DEI efforts? If you don't see it on their website or their projects, why is this something that you're starting to do now? And I think also looking at their networks to see, who they're connected with. Yeah. Got to stalk them on LinkedIn. If they have information about grants, you can check that. But yeah, I think it's really apparent with the way that the internet is, how legitimate or genuine these type of efforts can be. And even if they have, that token photo of like a Black person on like their homepage, like there's a lot of other things that are going to be on there that are going to tell you that that's a stock photo.
Right,
They
right.
don't work there.
Well, Black women we have this magical power of invisibility. So I also look to see if they have Black women, right? Because sometimes the idealized Black person is a Black dude, right? But do we have Black women? Do we have different hues of Black women, different hairstyles? Okay, so next question, career advice. So our target audience, we have a lot of people who are young, early career professionals, college graduates. What advice do you have for those young people who are pursuing either entrepreneurship or becoming independent consultants?
Yeah, so I would say find mentors in your network or people that you can look up to and, bombard them with questions. And I think if you think that they're doing something well, or if they are doing something well, like apply that to what you want to do, right? Like find out how or where they register their business, find out what website platform they're using, find out how they're outreaching or marketing, and then use that for what you're doing and build off of that so that you're not starting from nothing, so that you're you have somewhere to start from.
And I think that that's awesome advice because when we have young people, I'm in a lot of Black tech spaces with young people trying to break into tech, and they will ask the question, how should they approach someone who's doing what they want to be doing? And so we'll coach them like, reach out to them on LinkedIn, have an informational, interview. What does that look like for someone who's an entrepreneur? If someone were to reach out to you, if I were to say, Gloria, I stalked you on LinkedIn, I'm inspired by what you do. Could you tell me more?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, that's really great advice to be giving young people. And I think in that conversation, just like ask what you don't know, right? Like you don't know what you don't know. So if you have questions or, the whole business entrepreneurial side of things seems really foreign, ask like, what does it mean to start a business? And then I could say, you have to register as an LLC or a sole proprietor, all of these different things, and they can send you resources. And, when I was having those kind of conversations with people, there was a lot of jargon and new terminology I didn't know, but having them just say that made that aware to me that that was something that I needed to know and needed to learn about, and gave me a starting place to start my own business. Because otherwise, I don't have a business degree. I wouldn't have known where to start or where to go.
No, but I love that you mentioned how language can sometimes be a barrier in and of itself, and not just like, do I speak English? Do I speak, Spanish, Chinese? It's the industry jargon can sometimes be a barrier. And it's just some words that somebody made up to further keep the space status quo.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And that's so prevalent in GIS as well.
Yes. Okay. Last two questions, probably the hardest questions you're going to get. The theme of this year's homecoming is resilience or resistance. So which resonates with you more, resilience or resistance, or both?
Yeah, so I'll definitely say both, but maybe I can speak to resilience more. And I think just being present in this space as a Black woman and as someone who wants to uplift and grow issues specific to my own identity and my experience, I think is an act of resilience in itself. And something that I talked about in my workshops was that there's a very specific history to GIS, how it was created, how it's taught, how it was developed, and the identity of the people who did so, who are predominantly white and predominantly male, have created these inherent biases to GIS and the way it's used. So I think being able to not only be aware of those biases, but also understanding how to then take this technology and apply it in a way that is equitable to who I am is an act of resilience.
That. Okay, last question. Given your vast array of career knowledge and experience, how would you go about surviving the zombie apocalypse?
Oh, well, first of all, you're not putting me in a zombie apocalypse. I don't do zombies.
You don't have a choice.
I'll be in my bunker with enough food and water for 10 years. But while I'm there, I'd probably use drones or like satellite imagery to like check up on everyone else while I'm safe and away. Yeah, zombies are like the one thing I cannot do. But assuming that we still have like access to all of this and satellites are still going, like anything that is remote where I don't have to be outside around them.
This is where the value of GIS.
Yes.
So for all of you looking to survive the zombie apocalypse, learn GIS.
Exactly.
Well, Gloria, thank you so much for taking the time out from your geography week to sit down and talk to me and share a little bit about yourself and your company. So thank you.
And thank you. Thank you and the rest of North Star of GIS. This has been such an amazing experience.
For me too.